I've actually never told anyone this before, but I almost quit engineering during my third year of university. Not because I didn't like it, but because I thought it was breaking me. I'd be up at 2 a.m. in the morning staring at a MATLAB code that made no sense at all. I'd bomb a midterm after actually studying hard, and I'd walk into class every day feeling like the dumbest guy in the room. The labs were exhausting, the concepts were abstract, and no matter how hard I tried, it just felt like I was always behind. But here's the crazy part. I wanted to be an engineer. I wasn't here because someone forced me to. I chose this. I liked this stuff. But no one tells you what happens when your passion turns into pressure. When the thing that you really love starts kicking your ass every single day. There were weeks I felt like I was doing everything right, going to office hours, studying on weekends, even giving up night outs with friends. And yet, my grades didn't show it. I'd open a midterm paper and realize I didn't even understand the first question. Meanwhile, everyone else around me looked very calm and collected, like they had some secret that I didn't. I started shrinking, I stopped asking questions in class, I stopped volunteering for labs. I just sit there silent, thinking maybe I'm just not smart enough. Maybe I slipped through the cracks somehow. Maybe this is where the ride ends. Maybe I'm just not cut out for this stuff. I didn't tell anyone, not my friends, not my professors, not my parents. Because I was too embarrassed to admit that the guy who once dreamed of building cars, aircrafts, rockets, couldn't even get a heat transfer assignment done without breaking down. But then something unexpected happened. I stumbled upon this book called Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins. It was during reading week. I was supposed to be catching up on some lectures, but I couldn't focus. My mind was scattered. My motivation was gone. So I did what any lost engineering student would do. I opened YouTube. I don't even remember what I searched, maybe something like how to stop feeling like a failure. But that's when I saw this interview clip. This guy, David Goggins, was screaming into the mic about suffering, about how we all quit too early, about how most of us live at 40% of what we're capable of. And at first I thought, okay, chill bro, you're not in engineering. But something about the way he spoke, it cut straight through my excuses. That's right. I bought this book, Can't Hurt Me, and I read it cover to cover in 2 days. And I'll be real with you, it wrecked me because here's this guy who grew up abused, bullied, overweight, with asthma, every disadvantage that you can think of. And instead of using that as an excuse, he used it as fuel. He becomes a Navy SEAL, runs 100-mile ultra marathons, sets up pull-up world records with his hands torn open. But the most insane part, he chooses to suffer on purpose because he knows growth lives on the other side of pain. And suddenly I saw everything differently. Engineering wasn't breaking me, it was testing me. Every lab that went wrong, every all-nighter that ended in failure, every test that I walked out of feeling defeated and devastated, that wasn't a sign that I didn't belong. It was a sign that I was growing. The difference between Goggins and the rest of us wasn't pain tolerance. It was pain perspective. He saw pain as a teacher. I was treating it like a punishment. And that's when the mindset shift happened. I stopped asking, why is this so hard? And I started asking, what if it's supposed to be hard? And that's what flipped the switch for me. Engineering wasn't a problem to escape, it was a proving ground. And I realized that I didn't need more talent, I needed more toughness instead. Because maybe I wasn't falling behind. Maybe I was just finally in the arena. And it was time to fight like I belonged there. And there's a concept that Goggins introduces called callousing the mind. And the moment I read that, it really stuck with me because it made everything I was going through make sense. When you're lifting weights or you're doing pull-ups and your hands start to blister? At first it hurts, but over time you build calluses. The skin gets tougher, the pain lessens, and eventually you stop noticing the friction. Goggins says the same exact thing happens with your mind. You build mental calluses by doing hard things repeatedly, by choosing suffering, not avoiding it. And suddenly all those miserable engineering days, they weren't just academic failures. They were mental repetitions, sets of pain training sessions. That time that I rewrote a full MATLAB script 6 times because it kept crashing and it wasn't giving me the results that I needed. Mental reps. That week I couldn't get a single convergence in my CFD model no matter what boundary conditions I used. Mental reps. That moment that I failed my heat transfer midterm and had to sit on the bus ride home holding back tears. Mental reps. See, up until then, I thought engineering was about intelligence, but this book showed me that it was about resilience. Every time I wanted to drop out, every time I told myself, I cannot do this, that was exactly the moment that I needed to keep going. Because Goggins doesn't sugarcoat it. Pain is the only path, and avoidance is just another form of weakness. And I realized I had been avoiding the mental gym. I was pretending to work hard, but then breaking the second that it got real. So I made a new commitment. If I couldn't fix the code, then I'd still sit with it for another hour. If a concept didn't click, then I'd rewrite my notes by hand twice. If I bombed the test, I wouldn't complain. I'd rework every single question until I understood it. That wasn't about academics anymore. That was callousing the mind. And once I started doing that, I noticed something. The voice in my head, the one that always told me that I wasn't good enough, it started to quiet down because now I had proof that I could take a punch, that I could keep standing. And there's a moment in Kant's Hurt Me that hit me like a brick wall. Goggins talks about this rule that he lives by. When your mind is telling you that you're done, you're only at 40%. That means that when I slumped in my chair at 1 a.m. telling myself that I can't read another word, I still had 60% left. That means that when I skipped revising that last chapter because my brain couldn't take it anymore, I was actually not in my limits. I was just tapping out early. And the truth is that most of us do. And that made me look back at all the times that I quit early. All the projects that I half submitted. All the labs where I let my partner take over. All the weeks that I told myself that it's okay to just get by this time. That wasn't survival. That was surrender. So I started experimenting. One night I was exhausted. I had already studied for like 4 hours straight. Normally I'd call it a day, right? Shut the laptop, go to bed. But then I remembered the 40% rule. So I kept going. I told myself, just 1 more hour, just 1 more set. And that hour, it wasn't my worst. It was actually my best. Something clicked that night about conduction through composite walls because that's what I was studying, right? It was like my brain rewarded the effort. Another time, I couldn't solve a single control systems question. I was stuck. Nothing made sense. My brain felt like it had hit a wall. And I was right there about to slam the laptop shut. I could feel it, right? That urge to say, screw this, I'll come back to it later. But then I stopped. I took a breath. I stood up, walked around the room, once, twice, and then I came back. I didn't scroll through my phone. I didn't open YouTube. I just stared at the problem down like it owed me money. And I told myself, you're not leaving this chair until you crack it. I don't care if it takes all night. And I stayed. That night, I didn't find the answer right away, but something shifted. Because for once, I didn't run, right? And that was the win. And that's the thing about the 40% rule. It just doesn't mean work longer. It just means that you need to push into the unknown. Do the thing that you think you cannot do. Because you're not at your wall. You're just at your comfort zone's edge. And I'll be honest, it didn't always feel heroic. Sometimes that extra set felt like I was dragging my brain through mud, right? Sometimes I still failed after giving everything. But over time, I started fearing failure less and less. Because now, even when I failed, I knew I went past 40%. I knew that I had emptied the tank. And that kind of effort, it really changes you. Because you don't just become better at engineering, you become better at being you. And there's a part of this book that doesn't really get talked about much, right? But it completely changed how I approached engineering altogether. And honestly, how I approach life, right? Because Goggins calls it the accountability mirror. And it's brutal, right? He describes this habit where he'd look into the mirror every single day and face himself, like really face himself. No excuses, no fake positivity, no I'll do it better tomorrow. Just raw honesty. He'd look at himself in the mirror and eye to eye, right? And say what needed to be said. You're fat, you're lazy, you're full of potential, but you're wasting it. And I'll be honest, when I first read that, I thought, okay, that's a bit much, you know? I mean, aren't we supposed to be kind to ourselves? Aren't we taught to avoid self-criticism? But then I looked at my own life. I realized that I had spent years hiding from my own reflection, avoiding the mirror, not just literally, but mentally. I didn't want to face the fact that I was half-assing assignments, that I scrolled TikTok during study sessions, right? And called it like taking a break. That I was saying, I want to be a great engineer, but then my habits said otherwise. So I started my own version of the accountability mirror. Every night before bed, I'd stand in front of the mirror and I'd ask myself 3 questions. Number 1, did I give my best effort today? Number 2, did I use my time or did I waste it? And number 3, did I act like someone who deserves to wear that graduation gown on graduation day? See, most nights the answers were uncomfortable. But that was the point. It wasn't about guilt, it was about ownership. Because here's what Goggins teaches that most people miss. You can't grow if you don't confront your truth. And in engineering, that truth is often hidden. It's easy to blame the prof or the textbook or the group project that just flopped. But what about you? What about the fact that you didn't ask questions when you were confused? That you spent more time formatting your report than actually understanding the data? Once I started holding myself accountable, like truly accountable, I saw changes that I didn't think were possible. I stopped lying to myself. I stopped pretending to work when I was just procrastinating with like good posture, right? And slowly my confidence started to match my ambition. And there's this phrase that Goggins uses over and over again. Embrace the suck. At first, it just sounds like a military slogan, some macho motivational quote that you slap on a gym wall. But then, when I sat with it, it became philosophy. Because here's the truth. Engineering sucks. Not all the time, but enough of the time. It sucks when your simulation fails 1 minute before the deadline. It sucks when you study 20 hours for a midterm and still walk out unsure. It sucks when your co-op and your internships get rejected and your friends are landing interviews at Tesla and SpaceX. But guess what? It's supposed to suck. That is what makes it worth doing. Think about it. The most respected engineers, the most capable ones, they didn't get there by having a smooth ride. They got there by staying in the fight when it wasn't pretty. When things got boring, they didn't bail. When things got confusing, they didn't skip to the solution material. When they failed, they came back smarter. And that is what Goggins means by embracing the suck. It's not about enjoying the pain, it's about understanding that pain is part of the process. It's the tuition fee for excellence. You can either pay it or stay average. So I made a shift. Instead of avoiding the hard classes and courses, I chose them. Instead of skipping the labs that I hated, I leaned into them. Instead of dreading my weaknesses, I chased them. If thermodynamics scared the crap out of me, I doubled down on it. If I sucked at presentations, I signed up to be the lead of the group. If failures embarrassed me, I let it. And then I tried again anyway. And you know what happened? Something insane. Pride. Not fake pride, not inflated ego, but earned pride. The kind that you feel when you didn't quit. When you stayed in the lab till midnight and actually figured it out. When you failed and came back stronger. When you looked around the classroom and thought, I belong here. Not because it's easy for me, but because I fought to stay. And that's when the game changed. Because I stopped chasing motivation. Motivation is soft, it disappears. But pride, discipline, mental toughness, that stays. After everything, the breakdowns, the all-nighters, the self-doubt, the failure, there was one realization that came crashing down on me. I thought I was studying to be an engineer, but what I was actually building was myself. Because here's what they don't put on the course syllabus. Engineering school doesn't really just teach you about how to analyze heat exchangers or write clean code or size a beam. It teaches you how to stay calm under pressure. It teaches you how to attack problems that don't have obvious answers. It teaches you how to function with less sleep, more stress, and higher stakes than most people ever face in their life. You want to know what Can't Hurt Me taught me? It taught me that discipline is freedom. That toughness isn't just about pushing through, it's about taking responsibility for every inch of progress. That pain is not punishment. It's proof that you're working on something that truly matters. And suddenly, I stopped seeing engineering as just a degree. It became a training ground, a place to build precision, to build grit, to build the kind of self-respect that comes from doing hard, tough things, even when no one's watching. Before, I used to look at my GPA like it was a scoreboard. Now, I look at my habits, my character, my ability to stay calm when everything's going wrong. That is what engineering taught me. Not how to build machines, but how to build myself into one. I didn't quit engineering because David Goggins made me realize that I hadn't even started yet. I hadn't even started digging deep. I hadn't even started owning my efforts. I hadn't started showing up like someone who deserves to make an impact. And once I started, the labs didn't get easier, by the way. The tests didn't magically become fair. But I got harder to break. And that is all I ever needed. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.